Hello guys and welcome back to a new spring themed instruction video. Today we're going to make a cute little baby chicken pot or decorational piece. I'm going to make it as a closed shape, so it's going to be like a kind of an egg shape, and then I'm later on going to decorate it with like a cute little face and some eyes and all of that. We'll see what I come up with. Without any further ado, let's head over to the wheel and get started with throwing the shape of the chick. The first thing that I do is attach the ball of clay onto the bed with some water, and then I start centering it. I like to center the clay by just coning it up and pressing it down. So I press my hands towards the shoulder, cone up the clay, and then I slowly press it downwards. And that way the clay gets centered. And I repeat this multiple times until the clay is fully centered. Then I press my middle finger into the clay and I start opening up the shape. And then I pull the clay outwards and open up the shape completely with two hands. Then I adjust the side here a little bit so that it is nice and straight and ready for me to start pulling up. Then I start pulling up the walls and I hold a sponge in my right hand and I press towards my left hand on the inside while making an upwards movement. And I repeat this multiple times, and I try to make sure that the top doesn't get too wide because I am going to close the shape at the top. So this will get harder if the shape at the top is too wide, so sometimes I slowly press the top a little bit inwards. And then when the clay is thinner and I got the height that I want, I clean the inside of the piece by just going over it with a sponge to get rid of any water or slip, because I can do this after the shape is closed. And then I pull up the clay one more time and I slowly start shaping it. So as you can see, I pressed a little bit outwards in the middle to make it a little bit wider, and then I press the bottom a little bit more inwards, and then I start closing the shape at the top. And I just do this by slowly pressing the clay towards the middle. And then what I also often like to just put it up one more time at the top, because the clay gets a little bit thicker when you press it inwards. And then at the end I completely close the shape by just going over it with my finger like this. And then I like to go over the whole shape with a wooden loamer. This just helps me to make the shape nice and flowing and just change it a little bit. First the top was a little bit too pointy, but then I just flattened it a little bit. And then when I'm happy with the shape, I cut away some extra clay at the bottom. This will just save me some time with trimming and also make the bottom a little bit smaller. Then I smooth this out with the sponge again. And then I just go over the entire piece with sponge to just get rid of any slip or lines on the piece. And then the throwing part is done, and after one day of drying, the piece is leather hard and ready to be trimmed. Then I hang it in my giving grip. Normally you put something upside down on top of the giving grip. This time I didn't really have a flat top, so I just hang it in between the little arms of the giving grip. And then I start trimming it, and I like to start off with a small trimming tool to just make sure that everything is nice and flat. And then I cut away some extra clay at the side here, and by just going over it a few more times and trimming away more and more clay, I make the shape more round at the bottom. And in the end I also like to add a foot ring to the bottom. And when I finish trimming, I also like to smooth out the bottom by going over it with a sponge. And after that I go over it with a trimming tool to get rid of the slip. And then I go over it with my fingers one more time to make it completely smooth. And then the trimming part is done, and then we move over to the decorating part. The first thing that needs to be done is cutting open the egg, which was actually a little bit scary and a little bit stressful, but I just used a little knife and slowly started cutting it open. So my idea is to make the bottom part of this little pot the egg and the top part the chick. For that I just had to cut it open so that it looks like an eggshell. So yeah, just like this I make some random lines. I didn't really draw it on first or anything, I just did it out of my hand. But with the last few lines I did mark it with some little dots so that I knew that I would end up at the same part and that the line would actually connect, so that would be able to open it. And then I was able to open the piece, and I was quite happy with the way it looked, and it still fits nicely into each other, so I think that's pretty cool. If you don't want to make this piece a jar but you just want it to be a decorative piece, you don't have to do this, and you can just keep it closed and glaze on the different colors, but I think this is quite fun to do. And then something that I like to do is smooth out the edges of the parts that I cut, because when you cut it the edges are quite sharp and I just don't really like the look of that. So I just go over all of them on the inside, the outside, and also the bottom part and the top part. And then I start working on the face, and I'm starting off with the beak of the chick, and I just do this by rolling a little piece of clay in my finger like this, and then I make one side a little bit smaller, and then I cut it open like this so that it's like a beak that is opened. I just think that looks more fun than a closed beak. I cut away some extra clay at the bottom, and then I attach it to the egg, and I do this by first marking the spots where I'm going to attach it with the little knife, and then I scratch this part. And then I apply some vinegar with a brush, and then I scratch it again, and then I press the beak on top of it and make sure it's nice and stuck. I open up the mouth a little bit more because it looks nicer, I think. And then I clean it up a little bit by going over the sides with the brush to just get rid of little lines and cracks. And then I started to look at the way that I wanted to make the eyes. I first made these two big eyes because I thought it would look cute, and in a way it does, but it wasn't really the vibe that I was going for, and it looked a little bit creepy. So I decided to just take two really small balls of clay and use those as the eyes. Then I always like to just move them around a little bit to see if I want them to be close to each other or a little bit further apart. And I thought it would look better if they were close together like this, so I marked these spots again, and then I attach the eyes in the same way as I did with the beak, so just by scratching it and applying some vinegar. And then I use this tool with a little metal ball at the end to make the pupils, because I thought that would look cute. And then I start working on the wings, and for this I again rolled some clay in between my hands. I do this to get rid of any cracks, and I often first make it into a ball and then I shape it into the shape that I like. I then flatten it a little bit, and then what I like to do is cut it in half. This is a very easy technique to make a piece twice, so this way I have two wings that are the exact same size and that look the same and have the same shape. Yeah, I think that just works really well. And then what I like to do is make the edges that are a little bit sharp from cutting it, again just smooth it out. I did that by just going over it with my fingers a little bit. Then I held them next to the piece to see if I liked them, but I thought they were a little bit too big, so I decided to cut away a little bit of clay at the top just to make it a little bit smaller, because I thought that would look better. Then I took a look at where I wanted to attach them, and I again marked that spot and then attached them in the same way as I did with the face. And because I wanted the wings to kind of look like one part of the body, I used this shaping tool to press the clay of the wing a little bit onto the body, so that it would be one flowing shape and it looks like the wing is actually a part of the body instead of just sticked onto it. And after that I went over it with a sponge to smooth it out. And the last thing that I thought would be fun to add to this piece are some little feathers on top of the head. So I just rolled out some thin clay and made some spiky things at the top, and I just attached them in the same way as I did with everything, and also smoothed out the edges. And then the piece is finished and ready to dry, and after it dried I started glazing it, and I decided to decorate it with underglazes. And the first thing that I did was add the pupils with the same tool that I made them, and the glaze that I'm using is Jet Black, an underglaze from Amico. And then I moved on to the next glaze, which is white. I'm using a white underglaze to glaze the egg, and I just applied this all over the piece. Normally when I glaze a piece of one color, I would just go for a regular glaze and not for an underglaze. But because I also wanted to add some different colors and some details to this piece, I thought it would be best to just do everything with underglazes so that everything has the same style and the same look. So that's why I'm going for underglazes and just glazing it completely white. And I actually applied 3 coats of every color everywhere, because that gives an even look. Then I move over to the next glaze, which is apricot, and that's an underglaze from Mako, and it's like a little bit yellow orange-ish. And I'm using this for the beak and also for the little feathers on top of the head. And then over to the last underglaze I used, which was intense yellow, and I just applied this on the entire rest of the body. nicely. And I'm also applying this 3 coats so that's the nice even color and you don't see any of the brush strokes after it has been fired. And it's important to let the glaze dry in between coats. And then I applied a clear glaze all over the piece and I applied 2 coats of that also on the inside. And then the last thing that I do is clean the bottom on top of a wet piece of fabric just to make sure that there isn't any glaze that will melt onto the kiln shelf. And then the piece is finished and can go into the kiln for a glaze fire. And here is the final result. I think it turned out really cute. I hope you do too. That was it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you're going to make one of these chicks yourself and you're going to post it on Instagram, please tag me at Calder because I would love to see it. And if you have any more spring or maybe already summer ideas of things that you would like to see me make, feel free to leave them in the comments and maybe I'll make it and make a video out of it. So yeah, that was it for now and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye!